So welcome everyone to Oscar Care Group's webinar on Fueling Young Minds. My name's Hannah. I'm one of the accredited practicing dietitians here at Oscar Care Group. Today we're going to be talking about ways we can optimize kids' nutritional status and support them in building healthy relationships with food. So let's get started. So good, adequate nutrition helps to support growth and development by providing essential nutrients that provide the building blocks for physical growth, brain development, and overall health. It also helps to boost our immune function as nutrient-rich foods help strengthen the immune system, reducing the risk of and the severity of common illnesses. It improves learning and concentration, so a well-balanced diet fuels the brain, which enhances our attention span, our memory, and academic performance. And good nutrition helps to establish lifelong habits so that early exposure to healthy foods shapes food preferences and eating habits that last us through into adulthood. And of course, it helps to prevent nutritional deficiencies. So essential nutrients like iron, calcium, and vitamin D, they're of course critical at all points during our life, but especially during childhood. And they must be consumed regularly in order to prevent those deficiencies. Good nutrition also helps to reduce the risk of chronic diseases, so childhood obesity in particular, and it helps lower the risk of future conditions like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and high blood pressure. It helps to support emotional and mental well-being. So a balanced diet can stabilize mood and reduce the risk of behavioral issues and anxiety. And it encourages a healthy relationship with food. So teaching kids about food in a way that is positive and pressure-free, it builds confidence and reduces picky eating and disordered eating behaviors. And it promotes better sleep and good energy levels. So nutrient-dense meals, they help regulate our sleep patterns and they help keep kids energized and active throughout the day. So what does good nutrition look like? So when we're talking about children aged 1 to 4 years, we're looking at having 2 to 3 serves of vegetables each day. So vegetables will include legumes, so things like beans and chickpeas, and a serve is going to be about 75 grams, and that can be fresh, it can come from frozen foods, we can have tinned chickpeas, there's lots of different ways that we can get that serve in. We want to be having 1 serve of fruit per day. So a serve is about 150 grams, which is the size of about a medium-sized apple or about half a cup of mixed berries. We want to have 4 serves of grain food per day. The serving size are going to vary depending on whether we're talking about rice or bread, but we're aiming for 4 serves across the day. We want 1 to 1.5 serves of lean meat or a meat-free alternative. And we want to have about 1.5 serves of dairy or a dairy-free alternative to get that calcium in. Some kids are going to need additional serves if they're taller or they're really active. So there are some flexibility in here, but this is sort of the standard of what we're aiming for. When we're teaching children about healthy eating and nutrition, the goal is to help children develop a positive relationship with food and their bodies. So rather than focusing on rules and restrictions or good versus bad foods, we want to aim to create an environment where food is talked about with curiosity and positivity and balance. So children learn best when we model healthy behaviours and make mealtimes a safe, pressure-free experience. So by teaching them to identify and listen to their own hunger and fullness cues, to explore a variety of foods without shame and understand how food fuels their growth and their energy and their play, we help them build trust in their bodies and develop confidence in their choices. And this foundation is key, not just for physical health, but for emotional well-being, body image, and resilience in a world full of very confusing and conflicting messages around food. So now let's get into the fun part. How can we teach kids about nutrition in a way that is fun and engaging? So we have a few examples to go through. First one is the colourful plate challenge. So this works great both at home and in childcare centres. You can introduce kids to the idea of eating a rainbow, a really common nutritional phrase. It's a fun way to talk about vitamins, minerals, as different colours often mean a different vitamin and mineral makeup in that food. And we can talk about how different foods can help us to grow strong. So at lunchtime, see who can fill their plate with the most colour variety. So we'd be looking at things like red capsicums, green spinach, or cucumber or celery, some blueberries, we've got bananas, just a whole variety of all the different colours. Name that nutrient is another really popular one. So turning meal times into a bit of a trivia game works well for slightly older kids. So for example, asking them, what food is packed with vitamin C, or which foods help us to build strong bones. So kids love a little bit of competition. It's a great way to make talking about nutrition a bit more engaging. Food exploration stations. I really like this one. I think it's a great one. So setting up a sort of mini food station with all different foods, different ingredients, and letting the kids touch, taste, and explore the foods. So remember that foods are not just, different colors and different visually. They have different temperatures and different textures and all these different shapes. And it's all brand new to young children. And it can be a lot to take in with all the different sort of sensory things that are going on when it comes to particularly fresh produce. We find fruits and vegetables, they can vary a lot. When you buy the same fruit over and over again, it's not always going to look the same or feel the same or taste the same depending on the season and exactly where it's come from. So things like this, where we're encouraging that exploration, gives kids the chance to really learn and engage and understand how different foods are going to look and feel different. So cooking and baking are also really great opportunities to start talking to kids about foods and healthy foods and nutrition. So things like DIY wraps and rolls, creating a sort of build your own wrap station is a really good option. So laying out some whole grain wraps, a whole variety of fillings like chicken, hummus, veggies, avocado, and having this sort of mini assembly line. Kids generally love being hands-on in building their own foods. And so in this case, putting together their own wrap with their own choice of fillings. And you can talk to them about how the different ingredients help their body. So talking about how this chicken gives you protein and that protein helps you to build strong muscles so that you can run and play. So it introduces them to the idea of nutrients that are in foods in a way that's very pressure-free. They're choosing the foods that they want. You've chosen the options that they have available to them. So we know everything here is good, nutritious food. So there's no wrong sort of options they can choose from. Everything is positive and they get to learn while they're doing it. Fruit kebabs, this one's always really popular with the kids. They generally love their fruit and the colourful fruits. So they can skewer their favourite fruit onto sticks. So adding in things like pineapple, strawberries, kiwi fruit, getting that nice colour variety, again, to that sort of eat the rainbow mindset, and talking to them about how fruit gives us energy as well as the vitamins and minerals that we need to help us feel good and stay healthy and be energized throughout the day. Mini pizzas, this one's always a good one as well. So you can top things like whole grain English muffins or just using mini pizza bases with tomato sauce, cheese, and a nice array of colourful veggies. So spinach, tomatoes, capsicums, and let the kids create their own pizza. I remember doing this a lot as a kid. You always got to put together, create that little piece of artwork that goes on top, see how it comes out of the oven. So something like this where they get to be a bit more creative really helps to foster that positive environment that's associated with food. And you can use this as an opportunity to get chatting about the different veggies that are going onto their pizza and how they help us. So you can talk about how veggies help our immune system to help fight off germs and help us feel good, and just all the different things that all those veggies do for our bodies. And building memories through food is just such a powerful tool. Whether you're at home or in a childcare centre, you're creating moments that kids are going to carry forward with them. So we want to make sure that it counts. So we want to try different ways to get the kids involved. So making it interactive. Kids are more likely to remember meals when they've had a hand in making them. So the more hands-on, the better. Encourage them to, stir. They can sprinkle on toppings, mix. They can help with assembling foods, just getting them involved in any way. And creating food stories as well. So you can make food fun by telling stories around it. So, for example, you might talk about, the mighty carrot and how that helps you see in the dark. And then as they get a little bit older, then you might start talking to them about the specific nutrients. So you might talk about how carrots have loads of vitamin A, and vitamin A helps to strengthen our eyesight. So it makes nutrition come alive, and it helps build that really positive association with food by understanding all the really good things that foods do for our body. And creating cooking traditions is a really great one. So create a weekly or monthly cooking tradition. So it might be something like Fruity Friday, where you experiment with new fruits, or you might make smoothies together. And these traditions become something that the kids can look forward to and remember fondly as they grow up. I know I, like a lot of other people, I'm sure, have very strong memories associated with certain foods. Even now, I'll be eating something and I go, oh gosh, it takes me back. I remember making this myself when I was a kid, at my grandma's house, or we used to do this at kindy all the time. It brings back those memories, and I'm looking back a while ago now. So it's a very powerful tool in creating these really positive associations with food. So we all know that celebrations and treats are a really big and important part of childhood, but it's possible to make them healthier without sacrificing any fun or flavour. So let's chat about a few healthier alternatives to some of the traditional party snacks. A rainbow fruitcake, these were really popular a few years ago, if anyone remembers. I feel like I saw so many people doing these. So instead of that more typical, dense, sugary cake, we can go for something made out of bright, colourful fruits. So layering up all different options like strawberries, kiwi fruit, mango, and topping it with a bit of yogurt as your sort of icing on the cake. It's a nice sweet treat that's still packed with nutrients, and it looks really great. It's super bright and colourful, fits in very well for a kid's birthday. And hidden veggies in cupcakes, I think this is a fantastic strategy. I recommend this to adults still all the time. So this works for everyone, I think. Cupcakes, of course, we can still stick to the traditional flavours of chocolate cupcakes and having icing, but we can also make them with veggies. So kale, sweet potato, pumpkin, they go really nicely into your sort of typical sweet cupcakes. And it provides a really good opportunity to talk to kids about balance and how you can always look for ways to add nutrients into meals and snacks, which I think is a really important way of addressing it. Kids do pick up on the idea that certain foods like fruits and vegetables, they have all these great nutrients, and then what about all the other foods? And there's, of course, a lot of messaging around bad foods, or they hear adults talk about how they feel guilty or they've been naughty by eating some of these foods like chocolate muffins. So if we can talk to them about how these foods, they taste great and it's good to have them sometimes on these special occasions, but we can also add in more nutrients to them, like making our chocolate muffins with some vegetables. So then they're still containing lots of those good vitamins that they've already been taught about. They're still providing them with some nutrition. So they still know that there's room for balance in a diet and that they're not focusing on good foods and bad foods. Healthy ice cream. This one's very popular at the moment. A lot of ice cream machines being sold at Kmart and all sorts of places at the moment, which is great. So you can blend frozen bananas or any other fruit of your choice. I love to do this with mangoes. I think they work super well. You blend them up with a little bit of milk or yogurt of your choice, and they form into a nice ice cream or sort of gelati flavour, depending on the fruit that you choose. Bananas make a nice creamy texture. I like my mangoes for that more icy sort of texture. You don't need to add any extra sugar or anything. The natural sweetness from the fruit is going to do just that. And then you can also get the kids involved in decorating. So you can use your traditional ice cream toppings. You can still put some sprinkles on top of the banana ice cream, or you can add in extra fruits or add some seeds on top. There's lots of different toppings that you can use to still give it that very traditional ice cream experience, but it's also got all those vitamins, minerals, fiber, all those good things we get from fruit. We have specifically a strawberry and ice cream recipe in the spring edition of the Childcare Scoop. So if you download our spring edition of the Scoop, you'll be able to find our recipe in there as well. So now let's wrap things up with some quick and easy tips for both parents and childcare centres that you can put into action. So incorporate veggies in unexpected ways. So we just looked at the different muffin options, which is one of my favourite, but we can also sneak extra veggies into smoothies, for example, are a really good one. I find that spinach blends really well into a smoothie. It changes the colour, of course, but you can't really taste it. Cauliflower is another one. I find it blends really nicely into fruit smoothies. Sauces are great, especially pasta sauces. I think that's a popular one for parents. You can make a nice, tomato-based pasta sauce and blend a whole bunch of different veggies in there. It ends up being super nutrient dense, but it actually doesn't end up tasting that different. The texture doesn't really change. It's still your typical sort of tomato bolognese type sauce. It's just loaded with a variety of veggies. So there's no shame in, trying to hide in extra veggies. We all need some ways to sneak a little bit of extra nutrition into our diet. Some days it's hard to meet those recommended serves of veg. So finding some extra bonus ways that we can get some veggies in is always good. And using cooking as a teaching moment, so explaining what each food does for our body, and offer a variety of foods, but don't force it. Sometimes kids won't want to try a new food, and that's okay. We don't want trying foods to be this high pressure, high stress experience. And offer foods multiple times. A child will often need to be exposed to a new food 10 or more times before they feel comfortable with it. And even then, they may not like it. We as adults, we don't like all food. You're never going to see me eating an olive. To this day, will pick them off my pizza. It's not changing, and it's normal. It's human. We're not going to like everything. And kids are the same. They're going to have foods they don't like, and they might change their minds as they go older. They might just never like it. That's fine. But giving them that opportunity to be exposed and try it multiple times before we go, oh, yeah, that's a food that you don't like, and we stop giving it to them. There's definitely a lot of foods that I was given once as a kid and then said I didn't like it and never gave it again. And then years later, I went, oh, actually, these are really good. Who's been hiding these from me? So giving a child that chance to try it multiple times in a nice pressure-free environment, form their own opinion of the food is really important. And creating a fun, positive food environment. So whether we're at home or in a childcare setting, we want to keep food positive and fun, avoid making food this battleground, and instead encourage exploration and curiosity. So remember, we really want to foster a positive relationship with food and their bodies, and not just now, but also well into the future. So we want to make sure we're not using labels like good or bad foods, and instead we're focusing on talking about how some foods contain more nutrients to help keep our bodies healthy. And these are the foods that we want to eat more of to fuel our bodies. We want to avoid children feeling shame or guilt associated with certain foods. Remember that all foods can be included in a balanced diet. So we want to make sure that kids do understand that all foods play a role and that there are benefits, because there are benefits to all foods. The social connection and the celebrations that come with a lot of those treat foods are very important parts of the human experience, and we don't want any guilt or shame associated with that. We do want to make sure that kids understand that balance is super important. They just understand why we need more of some foods than others. We want to celebrate progress, not perfection. So particularly for you as parents or as cooks, it's not about making every single meal, absolutely perfect, this Pinterest-worthy Instagram story masterpiece. We want to celebrate the little wins that we have with the kids. So if they try new food, even if they put it in their mouth, they spit it out and they hate it, that's still a really brave thing to try a new food. I know a lot of adults who refuse to try anything new. When you don't know what it's going to feel like in your mouth, you don't know what it's going to taste like. It's a really brave thing to do. So we still want to celebrate the whole journey of having kids try and explore new foods and new meals and that whole exposure. So in summary, it's really important to foster a positive environment with food that teaches children all about the importance of eating enough foods that our bodies need. And remember, it can take children up to 10 exposures to a new food to accept it. So don't worry if a child isn't interested the first few times, especially with your fruits and vegetables. They can change in taste and texture. So that repeated exposure is important. I was eating some blueberries this morning, and out of the same punnet, some of them were super sour and some of them were very sweet, and some were almost crunchy, but some were really soft. So that whole change in texture is something it takes a while for us to get used to. So if we need to expose a child to foods repeatedly, that's a completely normal part of the process. We want to try to get children involved in preparing meals and snacks to increase their acceptance of foods and help teach them those valuable life skills around food preparation and safety in the kitchen, and then also providing that great opportunity to start talking to children about their hunger signals and about good nutrition and understanding their body's needs. So next week, we're holding our first ever in-person workshop. So this is a unique event that brings together our passion for food, early childhood nutrition and food safety, all within an early learning centre environment to nurture growing bodies. So if you have registered already, then we're looking forward to seeing you there. The workshop is being held in Melbourne. But if you're interested in this workshop or you're interstate, then do let us know. We're hoping to bring the workshop to some other states in 2026. So do email through your interest to that email that's on the screen, so marketing@oscarcaregroup.com.au, and then we'll make sure to let you know when there are more dates at different locations across the country. But thank you everyone for joining me today. If you want to revisit any tips, then please note that the presentation is recorded and at a later date we will make it available on our website so you can listen to my voice all over again. You'll receive an email once the recording's available, so if you do want to go back and have another look at anything we talked about, you can. But otherwise, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.